Come one and come all, it's time for Gavels and Gravy again. Welcome to No Infringement Intended, an intellectual property podcast of our law firm Troutman and Pepper Locke, hosted by the bad boys, the baddest boys, I would say, of intellectual property, Rusty Close and me, Austin Padgett. Today, we've got an FBI intern getting career mentorship from unexpected places. We've got skin suits. We've got a franchise so iconic, it's spent decades fighting off copycats, spinoffs, and courtroom battles almost as twisted as Hannibal Lecter himself. So put the lotion down, step away from the pit, and stay tuned, because today it puts the IP in its basket. Rusty, I should say, and I always meant to say this, that our intros give just great space for a potential ad read.
Yeah, 100%.
If we ever want to monetize the podcast. But can you imagine how many mattresses we could move after selling that sizzle?
Mattresses, or what's another classic one? Security systems. That's a big one.
Shaving kits and underwear.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we should start welcoming back the multitude of listeners that we have, as if they just had to listen to a set of ads.
Yeah.
But since they didn't, now they feel like they're in the in crowd and have the added benefit of skipping ads.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so we'll do that. Here we go. Welcome back, dear listeners. Rusty, what are we jumping into today?
Well, you always like to bring up our slogan, Gavels and Gravy, but today I think it's just Gravy and Gravy.
Ooh, okay, go on.
I'm wondering, did you ever have a phase in your life where you were consuming cooking shows? Do you do much cooking? What's your relationship with cooking entertainment, or just cooking in general?
Yeah, the cooking arts, I definitely enjoy them. Of course, building your own house is a splurge in itself, but the one area we did kind of make the splurge was on the stove and oven.
Nice.
So that we have kind of a kitchen grade thing. Now we've just got to have the skills to match, but we're all working on it.
Part of that for me came from, not to claim that I'm some great chef or anything like that, but I do have sort of a functional knowledge of cooking. And I don't know, from early on, I just liked watching cooking shows. And I'm talking about the shows where, not like the competition shows or anything like that.
Okay.
But
how early on are we talking here, Rusty?
Well, I certainly remember watching Justin Wilson, the Cajun chef, on PBS, way back in the day. But even in the early days of the Food Network, the Tyler Florence and Alton Brown, Bobby Flay, obviously. Alton Brown, interestingly enough, lives, or at least lived, I think still lives in Marietta. So not far away from where I live, at least. And then, obviously, Guy Fieri, which I think you've dressed up as for Halloween several times.
I view him as the quintessential American hero.
I thought that you did. I know you're a big bowling shirt guy. It's always been is he ripping off your look, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, for sure. Were you into, I remember the Galloping Gourmet back in the...
I know the name. I can't say that I've honestly watched it, but I do know of that show.
I just remember him being on around the time Julia Child's show was kind of, I'm sure it was replays of it. To me, that was, as a kid, that was really boring television. I think it was on about the same time boxing was on Saturday mornings.
Right.
And so, if I'm going to watch one thing, I'm going to watch boxing.
Sure. The Sweet Science.
You weren't into the competition shows. I would say that I came to cooking shows kind of later. It's not a cooking show, but early on, I was definitely into Supermarket Sweep.
Oh, who wasn't? Yeah.
Oh, dude, on Lifetime.
A great couple's Halloween costume, speaking of Halloween.
That one set the tone for me.
Yeah.
But I love that type of competition show. So Chopped, Iron Chef.
Sure.
More recently, Nailed It.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
The Great British Bake Off.
A lot of sarcasm in the title, Nailed It, I think.
Oh, yeah. We will laugh. We'll watch that as a family and just laugh hysterically.
So for us, the family cooking show is the British Bake Off, or Great British Baking.
Mm-hmm.
That is one show that we consistently, the five of us, will watch, the whole season. Friday night, the new episode's out, kind of thing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Baking is not something that I think that I'm very proficient at. But, just watching those shows, you just kind of pick up on stuff. You watch enough of them. And my mother-in-law asks me a lot, well, where'd you learn to cook, or where'd you learn to do that? I'm not sure that I learned it anywhere. It's usually just I absorbed it from watching Food Network.
Watching television, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what that says about how we grew up. I would tell you, for straight cooking shows, there was kind of a definite change in both me and the Food Network, at least from when I first saw it, probably the early 90s, to the time I was interested in it. So really wasn't interested until like the later 90s to around 2010 when like I've left home. I've got to start doing stuff for myself, and I need to learn how to do something. Like my mom taught me some basic kitchen stuff.
Sure.
But as far as, all these fancy things or just, Alton Brown, the way he would make it interesting.
The science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just different than the way Julia Childs was approaching it.
For sure.
That sort of thing. So that's definitely a marked difference.
I do feel like around the time, because I think Guy, he did win some sort of competition, the next Food Network host or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And, and then his show came on. Then he started doing diners, drive-ins, and dives. So that's less cooking and more visiting restaurants, but they're usually going to cook some stuff. And, it's kind of after that it's like, okay, is every show just a competition show now? Like, do we ever just kind of make some recipes kind of thing? So it definitely has evolved over the years.
As a side note, have you ever read that there's a book about the backstory of the Food Network?
No.
Oh, man, I should have researched it. I think it's called From Scratch. I believe that's what it's called. And it's there's a subtitle to it, like the behind the scenes of the Food Network. And it talks about kind of like the early years. And then like there is a market change where it becomes like the CEO kind of, I think they have a new CEO at the time, if I remember right. And she basically figures out that like, oh, people are interested in this stuff, but they're interested in food, not necessarily learning to cook for every show.
The cooking of it. Yeah.
And so like building more of an atmosphere around food. So you still have your cooking shows as kind of the staple, but then you have some big splash pieces with competition shows.
Sure.
Or kind of like a diners, drive-ins, and dives type of thing where, you're exploring America and doing other things other than just sitting around learning to cook the whole time.
Right.
It's kind of like that book Ball 4. I don't know if you ever read that about background of baseball. It's not as sordid as that, but there's a lot of like talk about how the personalities interact with management and all these sorts of things. It's a good read if you ever get a chance.
I mean, early on, you can imagine that from a production standpoint, you've got one set, you've got one, let's just say talent, per show. It's the budgets for the shows, you would think pretty low and relatively high upside, but they're super personality driven. So you can imagine they had some big thoughts on how they should be presented, how their show should be presented.
Yeah, I won't spoil it. There is a kind of a story episode within the book about the near burning down of one of the sets. It's
nice.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Well, one person that we didn't mention yet, at least, is Giada De Laurentiis. Are you familiar with Giada?
Very familiar, yes.
Yeah.
She has had a lot of shows on that network.
So many shows.
And she collaborates with a lot of the other chefs as well. She'll show up to Bobby Flay's shows and stuff like that.
Definitely. Well, Giada is going to be our intro into our topic of the day because her grandfather was Dino De Laurentiis, who is sort of a famous, legendary film producer in the U.S. and in Italy. Started in Italy and then came to the U.S. later. I'm going to leave off the Italian films that he's sort of known for because I don't have any experience with Italian cinema. I don't know if that's a big passion for you, though. So I'll leave you some space if you want to talk about it.
Okay, we can talk about that. What would people know that he produced?
Starting in the 70s, we've got Serpico, 3 Days of the Condor. Then moving into the 80s, Ragtime, Conan the Barbarian, Blue Velvet, a handful of Stephen King adaptations, Maximum Overdrive, The Dead Zone. I'm thinking of all of these kind of like early to mid 80s movies.
Blue Velvet, what a weird. There was I feel like kind of on cable in the 90s. I forget which channel it was, but Blue Velvet was on like every morning for one summer. Like it was like always there.
Probably USA Network or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
What brings us together today, and this came up a few episodes ago, you told us about 007 and the, sort of the rights issues with the characters and storylines kind of getting divided among different interests. And I piped up on that episode and said, I think the same thing happened in sort of the Silence of the Lambs universe, where the rights got broken up among different parties. And so I thought for this episode, we would go through that scenario and get, kind of reiterate some of the things we talked about in the 007 episode and, just again, see how this stuff plays out in real life. And, the reason this is interesting and related to Giada and our cooking shows is Dino De Laurentiis acquired the rights to the first Thomas Harris novel, Red Dragon. So that's kind of our kickoff point here.
Okay, so that was the first one, the first of the novels.
Yes, right.
Okay.
There are 4, and we can go through them. But did you read any of them?
No.
Okay. Hey.
So you told me that you were going to do something on kind of Silence of the Lambs. So I went and watched, I guess, 3 of the films.
Oh, wow. Tell us about it.
But I've never read the books. So
I've never read a book.
Yeah, exactly. I've never read a book. I just somehow got here. But yeah, have not, I'm big into different types of series.
Sure.
I did not commit anything to the Thomas Harris series.
I think that's okay. We're not going to hold that against you.
Okay.
Which of the films did you go through?
I watched Silence.
Okay.
I watched Hannibal.
Okay.
And I watched Red Dragon.
Okay. All right. So those are in order in terms of release date.
Mm-hmm.
But as we'll talk about, they are not in order in terms of how the books were released.
And it seems that just from the films, it seemed that Red Dragon would have been first, timing-wise.
Yes. That's right. So the first book, Red Dragon, 1981, again, written by Thomas Harris. This is the book that introduces the world to Hannibal Lecter, the beloved character that everyone knows from this universe, right? So in that book, in Red Dragon, Lecter is already in jail, and it was Will Graham, who is an FBI profiler, that's who put Lecter away. And now this is going to sound familiar if you've also seen Silence of the Lambs. Graham needs Hannibal's help to find another serial killer. Okay. So you just watched the movie. Do you happen to remember the serial killer on the loose in Red Dragon?
It is the same as in the book?
Yes.
Okay, it's Dollarhide.
Dollarhide. And what was his code name? I don't know what you call it.
The press would call him the Tooth Fairy.
The Tooth Fairy. Yes, exactly.
Because he would bite. He would leave a bite.
There you go. And we won't get into the gory details of how he committed his crimes, but you're exactly right.
Heavens no. This is for the kids.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So we don't have the contracts. We don't know the negotiations or, exactly what happened. But at the end of the day, Giada's grandfather, Dino, he acquires the rights to Red Dragon in 1985. And as best we can tell, he acquires all what we call all media adaptation rights to the Red Dragon story. So that includes sort of the narrative, the story itself, but also the characters that are introduced in that book. And importantly, that includes Hannibal Lecter. So that's kind of the main thing that's going to be kind of drive this conversation. So Will Graham, Hannibal Lecter, the Tooth Fairy, and those are the main ones we want to keep in mind. So what does Dino do now that he's got these rights? Well, he produces a movie called Manhunter. Now, you went back and you watched 3 movies from this universe. I'm guessing, did you skip Manhunter?
Not recently, but I would tell you that. So I had some sort of book about film like in high school, and my best buddy's name was Gary, and he worked at the local movie gallery, which was we didn't have a Blockbuster early on. We got it much later.
Sure.
But that was our movie rental place.
Yeah.
And they had some sort of deal where you could go and get like 5 movies for $5 for a week.
Not a bad weekend.
But they had to be non-new movies.
Uh-huh.
So you had to go into the interior and kind of scan. And so I would go through that book. I go hang out with Gary for a bit at his work because nobody cares. The boss man isn't there like saying, hey, beat it, kid. So I just go scroll through movies and then ultimately decide on 5. But I'd have that book and go through kind of like, I wanted to be a respectable cinephile or whatever,
Yeah. You've got ladies to impress at this time in your life.
Exactly. And I would tell you at some point, and I don't think Manhunter would get me there. And it wasn't, as far as I remember, fine cinema. But I did watch Manhunter at some point in time.
So you have seen it. So Manhunter is Dino's adaptation of Red Dragon. All right. And so for those who haven't seen it, I mean, would it be fair to characterize it? Because this is how I remember it. It has like a real Miami Vice vibe.
Oh, yeah.
It's that kind of early, right on the cusp of mid-'80s vibe of the synthesizers.
Yeah, you got a lot of synth work.
And just the visual palette,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should tell you that I know movies more because of soundtracks than the actual movies themselves. I can't tell you who did the soundtrack to this one. It is heavy. I remember it being heavy synth, lots of the Miami Vice type of colors and wear, kind of suits, but also kind of open shirts on dudes, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it stars William Peterson. Does that name ring a bell to you at all?
It does, yeah. It does.
Yeah.
For the listeners, I just whipped off my glasses.
Yeah.
I didn't have a quippy thing to say, but
this is not a visual medium, but yeah,
right.
Austin just whipped off his glasses because William Peterson was the star of CSI, and I cannot imagine the amount of money he has made being involved with that show for as long as he was and all the syndication of it. So he's done just fine since his Manhunter days. So he was Will Graham. Brian Cox, who I think of from the HBO show Succession, he was the Hannibal Lecter character. All right.
Interesting. Okay.
Interestingly, a kid from my school was in this movie as well. So again, we're talking about 1986. So this is like elementary school at the time.
Okay.
He was a member of one of the families who were victims of the tooth fairy.
Wow.
I don't know if that was a traumatic experience for him or not, but as far as I know, it's his only acting credit.
Was it a powerful performance?
I think it's just you probably blink and you miss it kind of thing.
Yeah, gotcha. Fair enough. But he was there.
He was there. He was there. You can look him up on IMDb. This film grossed like $8.5 million off of a $16 million budget. So it was an absolute bomb.
Mm.
That's going to matter when the book Silence of the Lambs rolls around in 1988, right?
Okay.
Part of the rights that Dino acquired were a right of first refusal. And so Silence of the Lambs comes along. This is a new storyline in a lot of ways. So we don't have Will Graham as the sort of main good guy protagonist. We've now got Clarice. And do you want to start the impressions now? Do you want to save those for later?
This could be a really rough episode let's at least save them for later if we reveal them at all.
Okay. Yeah. Because I think
that accent is very grating and tough.
Maybe one hello, Clarice, or something like that. We'll just save it, right?
Oh, I was even talking about Clarice's accent.
Oh, no. Yeah, you don't have to do her
Dr. Lecter.
That's right. Yeah, when she's talking about the lambs themselves. Yeah, we can leave that.
Oh, man. Painful.
So we still have Hannibal Lecter. He's still locked up. And we still have Jack Crawford. So Jack Crawford's the big boss of Will Graham in the first and Clarice in the second movie. He's the FBI behavioral sciences chief. But this story in particular focuses on Clarice's pursuit of a new serial killer. Do you remember the serial killer from Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah. He had a well and a dog named Princess.
Princess, yeah.
Buffalo Bill.
James Gum. Again, we'll leave a little space for you to do impressions if you'd like. It's kind of up to you.
Yeah, hard pass on this one. Yeah.
Right. But we don't have Will Graham as a character in this book. So, as I said, Dino has the right of first refusal to this material. But because Manhunter was such a bomb, he, for everything we know, says, no thanks, didn't even read the book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is how the story goes. He's like, I don't want anything to do with this. And so he passes on adapting this new material. But we do need to remember, he's the one who has the rights to the Hannibal Lecter character. So that he does have that, even though he's passing on this storyline and the new characters, he still has his rights to Hannibal Lecter and Will Graham and all of that. So those are retained.
Gotcha.
So the movie studio Orion, they're the ones who are going to make the movie. And the story goes that Dino lent them his rights to Hannibal Lecter for free. It's fine. Make the movie, no problem. No big deal from my end. And I guess technically that would probably be some sort of a sublicense. I'm sure there's some agreement somewhere where they had to put some stuff down on paper to make sure this was okay. But he's out of the picture because he saw this entire universe as being worthless. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Big mistake in retrospect. Silence of the Lambs comes out in 1991. Jonathan Demme directs. Anthony Hopkins, legendary performance as Hannibal Lecter. Jodie Foster, she's Clarice. Scott Glenn, who you may know, he plays Jack Crawford. My father-in-law was an FBI agent, and Scott Glenn in this movie, sort of like prototypical buttoned up glasses FBI agent, and really reminds me a lot of my father-in-law.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then Ted Levine plays the aforementioned Buffalo Bill. Just an unbelievably classic performance. You may remember Brooke Smith. She's Catherine Martin. She's the one who gets kidnapped and is down in the well. There's also a character named Miggs, who you might remember from the movie, but we probably won't get real into.
Yeah, not a major character, but because it's fresh and I just watched it. He's the guy in the cell right next to Lecter.
He is indeed. Not a major character, but a memorable character.
Yeah, I don't know that I could tell you who that. He's like a comedic bit part in Adam Sandler films.
He has been in an Adam Sandler film. Stuart Rudin is his name.
Okay.
But yeah, he was in like Little Nicky or something like that.
He's in Little Nicky, yeah.
Much more memorable as Miggs.
I think he shows up in other, I don't know if he's a Sandler guy, like in the kind of that group, but I think he's in other films. I've seen him in other bit parts before.
Maybe Sandler was just a big fan of his work in Silence of the Lambs.
That might be it. That's a real important moment.
It is. It is indeed. Encourage folks to go back and watch.
Let me ask you this. Do you know who did the soundtrack to the film?
No, I don't.
Howard Shore.
Okay.
Most people would know him for the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh, okay. All right.
The soundtrack. It's huge, epic, sweeping soundtracks. I mean, he's done a ton of stuff. Really prolific composer.
So is there like a John Williams camp and then this guy camp? Are they contemporaries or battling for the crown?
Howard Shore's, as a lot of people are, a little younger.
Okay.
Not by much, but a little younger than John Williams. I mean, all three of the films that I mentioned that I watch have really great scores by really great, all different composers, but really great.
But all different. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Red Dragon was Danny Elfman.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I do know that name.
If you know that, you kind of hear it. But anyway, keep going.
No, it's a good diversion. So Silence of the Lambs goes on to sweep the 5 major categories at the Academy Awards. So picture, director, actor, actress, screenplay. It's only the 3rd time that it's happened. Do you happen to know the other 2?
Ooh.
You're the trivia guy. I know you were 7 Wonders of the World, but I didn't know if, Academy Awards fell under your purview.
That would come up at a trivia night.
For sure.
So Silence is one. I do not know.
So the first was It Happened One Night, which is older than I know. I'm not familiar with that. But the other is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I do have, some familiarity with. Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Tough watch. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe if you're going to win all 5, it's going to have to be a tough watch kind of thing.
No doubt. Yeah. Sandler doesn't get these credits that he deserves.
No, not at all. Another, kind of interesting fact, Hopkins, I don't know why we can't pin down the number of minutes of screen time, but it's somewhere between 16 and 24 minutes, which is sort of cited as, one of the shortest lead performances for someone who won Best Actor.
It might be because at one point in time he is disguised. He's wearing a mask.
True, yeah.
So there might be some question as to whether that counts or not.
A mask is an interesting way to put it.
That's right, yes.
So $19 million budget, grosses $272 million, becomes the source of 1 million inappropriate jokes and impressions.
Fair enough.
It also includes, a memorable scene. We mentioned Catherine Martin earlier, memorable scene that has a song from one of our favorite artists. Do you remember?
Yes, because this struck me when I rewatched. Yeah. Like I'd totally forgotten about this scene.
Really?
But it stands out so well.
Yes. From
the film. I would say mainly because this song stands in direct contrast to the rest of the soundtrack and everything. It's Tom Petty's American Girl.
It's an outlier for sure. Yeah.
As she's driving around, kind of really getting into the song, feeling it.
Yeah, it's Tom Petty's American Girl. So it's kind of like, you're right, it's sort of a perfect contrast to everything else that's going on in the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So now Dino's going to have to probably rethink his view on, the value of his rights in the Red Dragon universe and Hannibal Lecter, right? He passed on this. So again, Orion owns the rights to Silence of the Lambs story and any characters that were introduced for the first time in that book. So Clarice, importantly, Buffalo Bill, Catherine Martin, so on and so forth, but not Hannibal Lecter, not Will Graham, not the ones that came up for the first time in Red Dragon. So this is where things start to get complicated, and we get into, like we discussed in 007, the bifurcation of character rights. Can you give us, including the listeners, a little refresh on what we mean when we say bifurcation of character rights?
Yeah, this concept comes up quite a bit in our discussions, right? I mean, our very first episode, we're talking about the difference between the copyright in the underlying composition and the copyright in the recorded song. Let's go back to cooking shows. You could have the recipe, and then you have the dish itself. And so the idea is that owning a character doesn't mean that you own every version of that character. That each film in this instance is going to create its own copyrightable expression of the underlying property, which is kind of the character concept, maybe distinct lines, maybe appearances that are written in the book and things like that. So those rights can and actually do travel in completely different directions simultaneously sometimes. So you've got the character itself. It sounds like Hannibal Lecter belongs to Dino.
Yep.
Or at least the rights in that character. The specific expression that happens in Silence of the Lambs, that belongs to Orion. You've got the same character, two separate ownerships running in parallel, basically.
That's the gist of it. And where this comes up is well, what if we want to do future projects, in this universe? And that's where the issue really starts to play itself out. So, like you said, Dino, most importantly, he's got the rights to Hannibal. Orion, they own the rights to Clarice, Buffalo Bill. And then we've got these other players that kind of show up in each of the stories, but originally showed up in Red Dragon. So again, Will Graham, Jack Crawford, Tooth Fairy. There's a reporter named Freddie Lowndes. Anything you remember about him from the Red Dragon movie?
No, I don't. No.
Or who played him? That's Philip Seymour Hoffman's character.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So he comes to a sort of a tragic ending for folks who have watched the movie. Thomas Harris, the author, he's also going to own some rights. Okay, so the chronology of the books is Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, then Hannibal, which comes out in 1999. That is a sequel. I mean, it is truly a sequel. It is following Hannibal Lecter. He's now in Europe and sort of living as a fancy rich guy, right? So it's kind of what happens after Silence of the Lambs. And then there's Hannibal Rising, which comes out in 2006, but it is Hannibal's origin story. So now we're jumping back in time before Red Dragon. And so Harris himself owns the rights to all the characters that show up in those books for the first time.
Wow. Yeah. Lots of rights.
Lots of rights going around. So Dino is rethinking his position on this universe. And when...
Oh, I bet he is.
He's really bummed out, I'm sure. But I think he's going to make out okay. When the third novel comes out, that's Hannibal, he quickly exercises his right of first refusal. He pays up to the tune of $10 million for the rights to that subject matter. So $10 million. Now, part of the issue there, though, is Clarice is a character in that story. And so Orion owns those rights. So Dino wants to make the movie Hannibal, but if he wants to make it, have it be true to the book, he needs buy-in from Orion. And at this point, it's actually MGM because there's been an acquisition. But that's what he needs, is some cooperation from them. Now, this is a situation where we're coming off this hugely successful movie. Everybody is incentivized to work together, and they do get together. MGM and Dino's production company are co-producers on the film, and we get the movie Hannibal. This is the one where, again, Hannibal Lecter's in Europe. Anthony Hopkins joins up again. Jodie Foster does not join up. Do you remember who plays Clarice in the Hannibal movie?
In Hannibal?
Yeah. Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore, that's right. Yeah, she looks very similar.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Similar look. This movie, so I told you that Silence of the Lambs made, what, 217 million, something like that? 272 million. Do you want to take a guess at what Hannibal makes worldwide?
More.
It does make more, shockingly.
I'm going over under here, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, $350 million.
Good grief. Okay.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I can't honestly say that I saw that movie, but as you told us, you've watched it recently.
Yeah, and Hans Zimmer does the soundtrack, so it's
Okay.
another great one. There's an opera scene in the film.
Okay. Makes sense. Takes place in Europe.
Yeah, and the opera for the scene was specifically written for that scene
Okay.
by an Irish composer named Patrick Cassidy, who does like some great work.
That is an Irish name.
Yeah. Great composer, really great work. It's a big work, probably an oratorio is the word for it, on the Irish potato famine. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just really great work. So it's fascinating to go from Hans Zimmer style soundtrack into that. I mean, it's again kind of like Tom Petty coming in over the top.
Right.
Really distinctive sound in that opera. Incredible. Highly recommend.
The movie doesn't have the legacy or the reputation of Silence of the Lambs, but it sounds like still a worthwhile watch, maybe.
Yeah, I would tell you it held up pretty well.
Okay.
Watching it, I enjoyed it. It was fine. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Good. Recommendation for the listeners, the infringers.
That's right.
So we've got a money-making machine on our hands. Now we're rolling. Dino, he's going to take another crack at Red Dragon. And that's what ends up being the Red Dragon that you watched.
Okay. Ed Norton.
It is essentially, hey, let's forget that we made Manhunter. Let's make Red Dragon and actually name it after the book and make a true remake of that movie. This is in 2002. This is the one I mentioned earlier with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And that one I do remember seeing for whatever reason. I remember me and a buddy saw that one in the theater. That one didn't do quite as well. It still made $210 million worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, things are going pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of change.
Yes, not bad at all. Not inflation adjusted. So, I don't know how it would be in today's dollars. I mentioned above, there's a fourth book, Hannibal Rising. That's the prequel. And the story goes that, look, Dino owns the rights to Hannibal. I can do whatever I want with this character. And if you don't want to write a book about his backstory, his origin story, I'll just come up with one on my own. And so maybe Harris got a little pressured into writing the book, but he does go ahead and write that book. And there's a movie that accompanies that as well. I definitely haven't seen that movie.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I think that one's not the most well regarded. So we kind of come to the end of the road in terms of the books and the movies. So now we got to figure out how to keep the cash cow rolling, right? And so that's when we start thinking about doing some TV shows.
Oh, I thought we were going to go to Broadway. Okay.
Right. What's Sweeney Todd? Isn't that?
That's right. That's right.
Serial killer, right? So it could be that. Yeah. Maybe that's next. I don't know if we can work out these rights issues.
Perhaps.
This is a little bit of a side note. Dino passes away in 2010, and the rights that he owns, Red Dragon Universe and the characters, pass on to his widow, Martha. So Martha's going to be a player in this now. And as we understand it, Martha was in talks with, so Martha is Red Dragon and Hannibal. MGM is Silence of the Lambs and Clarice. And they're in talks to unite the whole thing together. But there's a French-owned production company that comes over the top. They make an offer to Martha for a better deal. They're going to give her more money, but all they can get out of that is the Red Dragon rights.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so they're going to make a TV show and they're going to work with her, but they don't get the whole pot of rights. They just get the Red Dragon universe, but they do get Hannibal. And so that leads us to the Hannibal TV show.
Yeah, as backdrop for this, I mean, this is the point in time when universe and franchise are becoming very important.
For sure. I mean, we're talking like 2010, 2011, 2012, for sure.
Yeah. You have a lot of properties that are trying to be completionist and be able to offer fans the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Hannibal TV show? That's the one with Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal.
I didn't watch an episode of it.
So it ran for 3 seasons, 39 episodes.
Oh, wow. Okay. I might have to go revisit this.
It's interesting. I mean, it's very, I don't know, high concept in a lot of ways. I mean, but it's a good show. I don't think we watched it all the way through, but we definitely watched for a while. And, Mads Mikkelsen, his take on Lecter is really interesting. And so, but we're back in the universe of his relationship with Will Graham. And the two of them are sort of like mirror images of each other. They sort of like, I don't want to say the same mindset, but That's why Will Graham was able to profile Hannibal and put him in jail. Whereas the relationship between Hannibal and Clarice is more like he's kind of like the cat that's kind of batting the mouse around a little bit, and teasing it and messing around with it. So different relationship there. They had plans to kind of run through the whole course and eventually bring in the Silence of the Lambs storyline, and I suppose just work out those rights when they ever got to it, but they never made it that far. So it was canceled in 2015. So then MGM says, okay, well, we'll use our rights. We'll create our own show called Clarice. Now, can you imagine what the big problem was with the Clarice show?
Well, my guess is because Martha went elsewhere. We've got a non-unification problem.
They got to tell a story about Clarice that doesn't talk about, include Hannibal Lecter. So it kind of guts the show from the beginning.
Right.
And it just becomes this sort of bad guy of the week sort of procedural show. And it only lasts for one season. 2021, there was a lot going on in the world. I have absolutely no recollection of this show at all.
Yeah, I had a lot of time for TV then, and I don't think I ever watched it.
Yes, and even this didn't make it onto the list.
Right.
So that kind of gets us through the television series, all of that stuff, the complications of everything that went on. So where are we today? So Martha passes away. Martha is Dino's widow, she owns the right to the Red Dragon universe and Hannibal Lecter. She passes away in 2021. And this triggered a contractual rights reversion. Can you give some thought on, or some context on what that type of, reversion right is?
Sure. Yeah. There's, in its most basic form, as our listeners are well aware, something happens, a triggering event, and the rights that were licensed to someone go back to the original person who gave them away.
Yes.
You don't often get that. It kind of depends on your negotiating leverage. But if you can get it, you want it because you don't know the exact value that you're giving away at the point in time where you're making the deal. Neither does the other person either. But if they can make a lot out of it and you gave it away for very little, it would be nice to have another bite at the apple.
Another bite at the apple. And I am quite certain in this situation, the De Laurentiis family did very well with the rights that they had.
It seems like it. That $10 million seemed like a big number, but that seemed to have been well worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can imagine 10 million was probably a drop in the bucket, all things considered.
No doubt about it.
The way this one worked was, so when the widow passes away, the Red Dragon rights revert back to the author, Thomas Harris. So from everything I read and saw, it seems like there is stuff that has to happen to get the rights back to him. It wasn't as clean as just like some sort of springing mechanism where now he owns them all again. It seemed like there were some things to be worked out to make it where the rights are fully back in his possession. And I don't know the details of what that would be. Is there anything you would speculate as to why that would be more complicated and not just like, yeah, he's got the rights back?
No. I mean, I'd want to take a look at these agreements. Yeah.
There's probably something weird about, it's probably just the way the contracts were drafted that it made it where it's a little more complicated than, hey, she passed away, the rights are now his. There's some stuff to work through. But at the end of the day, Harris stands to get the rights back to Hannibal Lecter and the Red Dragon universe. So that means he'll have Red Dragon, he'll have, the Hannibal book, anything that was introduced there, and the Hannibal Rising book, anything that was introduced there. Again, that's the prequel. But now Amazon, by way of MGM, by way of Orion, they're the ones that now own Silence of the Lambs rights. So Clarice mainly. And if I'm not mistaken, from the 007 episode, is it Amazon that is consolidating the Bond rights as well?
I think that's right. Yeah.
I think that's correct. So now potentially they might be piecing together another universe of characters.
Oh, now we can do a cross collab.
There you go.
What an episode we could bring on that.
Bring Bond into a Hannibal Lecter story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So ostensibly, with all of this in mind, Thomas Harris and Amazon could work together on some sort of a project, some new miniseries, whatever you might want it to be, that combines these two universes. So, more stories that involve Clarice and Hannibal and even Will Graham, and we could just have the whole gang together.
I love it.
Now, what Amazon and Harris wouldn't be able to do, at least in theory, is just pick back up where things left off with the Hannibal TV show. Because that French production company, they own certain rights in characters that they introduced into that universe. So we do have this other rights holder. So if the idea was, well, crap, let's just pick back up where we left that bad boy off. Mads Mikkelsen still wants to play Hannibal. We can now bring in Clarice. There's some challenges there because the French company has some rights. And I think there is some lasting bad blood because of the way they came over the top when they were initially trying to consolidate these things.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, yeah. And that might have been the complicating factor in the reversion.
That could be.
Thinking about it is that maybe Dino / Martha / all these other, maybe there were a lot of things added. And so kind of figuring out exactly what was reverted. I mean, you have the easy question of, well, whatever rights we gave them, revert back to us.
Revert back. Yeah. But it's not quite that black and white.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you define the property as anything that's added to it along the way by the licensee, and then it's all got to come back. And so you killed off their ability to access, kind of their version of the property or what they created as part of it, and you want an assignment of that stuff back to you as well. I mean, you got to have some major leverage to pull a move like that, but perhaps there was some sort of complication in defining what the property was.
Let's hypothesize a little bit and say things are a little cleaner than they are in real life. Let's just say that Thomas Harris and his rights package and Amazon and their rights package could come together and say, let's move forward with that Hannibal TV show. We don't have to involve this French company. In theory, they could probably do that. You almost have to imagine the French company would step in and have some sort of issue with it. But they could at least toe the line and say, well, look, we're not using these characters that you introduced. We're not doing any of that. What about the idea of, could Mads Mikkelsen continue to portray Hannibal Lecter in the manner that he portrayed him in that show? In other words, does that production company have any sort of claim to the way Lecter was portrayed by Mikkelsen?
They probably have some agreements with Mikkelsen in the tank about what they own and the copyright and the performance itself. There may be a claim there of the way he portrays Lecter. The problem is that a lot of this is going to be informed by the book and kind of what we know about Lecter. So those sorts of things, I think you could argue, they don't own that.
They could try to gum up the works, but at the end of the day, they probably don't have an actual claim to owning it.
Yeah. I mean, you probably need to take some practical steps of, let's dress him differently than the exact thing he was wearing, have what we have in the book and have our own take on it. It's kind of like, when we do this with software agreements, like we're going to act like we don't know anything about this piece of software. You, the developers, are going to sit in the white room without any access to anything and come up with, you have access to these specific things that we give you in a closed universe. It might be that sort of exercise.
It creates some interesting law school exam type questions, but without the full context of, well, what went into their agreements? The agreements are going to really color who owns what, who can do what, if he can continue playing this role in this way, and all of those things. But I mean, from a, let's say again, law school exam perspective, the production company likely can't own the way in which this actor portrayed this character. Probably.
It would have to be a pretty distinctive performance.
Yeah. Well, again, these are topics we discussed before in the 007 universe, but I think it's interesting to see how they play out in kind of these other familiar scenarios and think through the challenges and the way that the rights came to be in different people's hands and all of that. Is there anything we missed? Anything you'd like to add to it?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of the same theme that came out in the 007 episode, was that it's pretty easy to Monday morning quarterback these things.
Always.
But, hearing the context of, hey, this movie bombed, I don't know if this property, it may not have been my movie. It may have been the property itself just doesn't resonate. So I'm going to make this decision. It's easy to jump and say, what a mistake, or what a goof.
What an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. But, the more you hear about these things, the more, and the longer you live, the more perspective you get on, okay, I can get how that decision was made. And now, but how complicated it makes things kind of going forward.
It just becomes, it doesn't become a nightmare necessarily, and it gives us plenty of stuff to work on, keeps our job from being taken over by AI, but
so far, so good.
It gives us some fun stuff to work on.
That's right.
Last chance for your Buffalo Bill impression or your Hannibal Lecter impression.
We're going to save it for a future episode. I'm sure we'll revisit these guys soon.
All right, well, take us out.
All right. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit like and subscribe. Give us that 5-star rating. Man, we need that Golden Globe nomination sooner rather than later. But remember, whether it's a spinoff, a prequel, or something you cooked up in a basement, there is no infringement intended.
Copyright Troutman Pepperlock, LLP. These recorded materials are designed for educational purposes only. This podcast is not legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual participants. Troutman does not make any representations or warranties, expressed or implied, regarding the contents of this podcast. Information on previous case results does not guarantee a similar future result. Users of this podcast may save and use the podcast only for personal or other non-commercial educational purposes. No other use, including without limitation, reproduction, retransmission, or editing of this podcast may be made without the prior written permission of Troutman Pepperlock. If you have any questions, please contact us at troutman.com.